This is our podcast of the effects of smoking on your respiratory system, presented by Jordan Nelson, Heidi Schneller, Rylan Russell, Dylan Leese, Danny Anderson, and Cooper Stein. The human respiratory system is a series of organs responsible for taking in oxygen and expelling carbon dioxide. The primary organs of the respiratory system are the lungs, which carry out this exchange of gases as we breathe. A healthy respiratory system is crucial to survive not only because it allows us to breathe, but it also plays a role in helping the body maintain homeostasis. Without functioning lungs, cells in the human body would not be able to receive the oxygen and dispose of carbon dioxide, which would result in the cells dying. Just as it is easy to keep the respiratory system healthy, it is also easy to damage it. Throughout this podcast, I will explaining the effects of smoking on the respiratory system and just how serious this issue is in the world. Smoking is one of the worst and easiest ways to harm the respiratory system. When an individual smokes, they are filling their lungs with a toxic substance and contaminating the healthy tissue. As the smoke travels through the respiratory system, it harms the main airways, the bronchi, then the peripheral airways, the bronchioles, and finally the terminal alveoli, air pockets within the lungs. The immune system also experiences damages in this process. Cilia are lost and mucus gland hypertrophy takes place in the upper airways and inflammation. Fibrosis and congestion occur in the peripheral airways. Due to the loss of gas exchange, airways flexibility decreases and alveoli are destroyed. Smoke also causes inflammation to the cells of the bronchial tree, which can result in several precancerous conditions. The smoke produced from cigarettes is made up of a microscopic gas, liquid, and solid particles. In total, there are over 7,000 chemicals in tobacco smoke, and 250 are known to be poisonous. According to the freelance tobacco control consultant Don Milner in the psychological effects of smoking on the respiratory system, tobacco smoke is made up of sidestream smoke from the burning tip of the cigarette and mainstream smoke from the filter or mouth end. Many of the toxins are present in higher concentrations in sidestream rather than mainstream smoke. About 70 chemicals in cigarettes are known to human carcinogens, which are substances that cause cancer. An example of one dangerous toxin found in cigarettes is formaldehyde. This chemical is used in liquid form to preserve dead bodies. When in gaseous form, it causes throat and nose irritation that smokers experience. Radioactive toxic metals such as lead and polonium have also been found in cigarette smoke. Other toxic ingredients within cigarettes include the metal compound arsenic, which is used in rat poison, hydrogen cyanide, which was used to kill people in gas chambers, and the addictive poison used in pesticides called nicotine. According to the National Cancer Institute article, Harms of Cigarette Smoking and Health Benefits of Quitting, nicotine is the addictive component of cigarettes, and the addiction it causes is similar to those of heroin and cocaine. Nicotine is naturally found in tobacco plants, but cigarette companies intentionally make sure that there is enough to cause an addiction. It is absorbed into the bloodstream through the lining of the mouth and lungs, and it travels to the brain in seconds. It does not take long for the negative effects of smoking to start showing. They can occur after only 1 or 2 cigarettes. The toxin one inhales while smoking causes the lungs to age faster and weakens their automatic defense mechanisms, which increases their chances of respiratory infections. This higher risk for infection is also due to the increase in size and quantity of mucus-producing cells in the lungs. This cell growth causes mucus to be produced faster and thicker, which clogs the airways and induces coughing. According to the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, or UMPC, and how smoking cigarettes affects your lungs, smoking can destroy your lungs and lung tissue. This decreases the number of air spaces and blood vessels in the lungs, resulting in less oxygen to critical parts of your body. As mentioned before, smoking also harms the broom-like hairs that clean the lungs called cilia. As the smoke travels through the lungs, the cilia slow down in movement and decrease overall, which prevents the lungs from being properly cleaned. Smoking also creates health risks for the brain, stomach, skin, and blood circulation.
Another dangerous effect of smoking is cigarette tar, which is the leftover toxic chemical particles that remain in the lungs. It leaves a brown coating or yellow residue within the lungs, and it builds up in the lungs as the smoke is inhaled. Over time, the tar will cause the pink color of healthy lungs to fade to gray and eventually black as more tar accumulates. As Terry Martin said, how cigarette tar can hurt you. The primary effect is that the tar paralyzes and can eventually kill cilia in the lung. They help trap pollutants, but when they're damaged, the toxins in tar can travel deeper into the lungs. Cigarette tar can also affect every organ in the body by traveling through the bloodstream and causing a multitude of diseases. Although smoking is a major problem in the United States, it is an even larger issue in China. According to the World Health Organization, China Representative Office, there are more than 300 million smokers in China, nearly one-third of the world total. China approximately has 1 million tobacco-caused deaths every year. In other words, 3,000 people die daily, or one person every 30 seconds because of tobacco use. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, cigarette smoking is the leading cause of preventable disease and death in the United States, accounting for more than 480,000 deaths every year, or about 1 in 5 deaths. The death rate of smokers in China is far higher than the United States for a number of reasons. Since China's population of smokers is so high to begin with, many people also are affected by secondhand smoke. In fact, many deaths accounted in total mortality rate are caused by secondhand smoke. China's efforts to reduce smoking have not worked as well as it has in other countries. For example, eliminating cigarette company advertisements, increasing price of cigarettes, and enforcing a strict ban on smoking in public areas have worked well for other countries attempting to decrease smoking. However, China's efforts have proved to be hardly beneficial because the amount of smokers is already so high, it is too difficult to try to force millions of people to quit something they are already addicted to. Research done in 2017 by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention showed the prevalence of smoking among adults in the United States. Since this study was done, the smoker population has increased, but the prevalence of smoking in specific individuals remains constant. In 2017, men were more likely to be smokers than women. Out of every 100 men, at least 16 of them were current smokers. Most people with a smoking addiction were in the age group of late adult or 45 to 64 years, with every 17 out of 100 people within the age group of being smokers. The second highest age group was adults between 25 and 44 years, and 18 to 24-year-olds was third. The prevalence of smoking based on ethnicity was highest in non-Hispanic American Indians, with 24 out of every 100 people being smokers. Other than the three most popular prevalence categories, education level and annual income are also factors that influence the smoking population. The number of smokers who have their GED certificate is nearly double those with high school or college diplomas. Based on income, the prevalence of smoking is highest in those with an annual household income less than $35,000.
There are two main ways that the respiratory system maintains homeostasis, and these include gas exchange and the regulation of blood pH. Let's take a look at how the respiratory system functions when in good condition and thus maintaining homeostasis. This process begins with the action of breathing. When one inhales air through the nose or mouth, oxygen travels to the back of the throat and down the trachea, or windpipe, and into the bronchial tubes. The bronchial tubes are a division of the trachea, and as they emerge into the lungs, they divide into even smaller tubes known as bronchioles. At the end of each bronchiole are tiny sacs called alveoli. Surrounding these sacs are mesh-like vessels called capillaries that are filled with blood. It is at this place in the lungs where oxygen exchange takes place, going from the alveoli into the body's bloodstream. In this process, carbon dioxide is formed and carried back into the heart to the lungs by means of the bloodstream. From here it is expelled back into the outside world through exhalation. An important muscle that assists the lungs in both the inhalation and exhalation process is the diaphragm. When taking air in, the diaphragm contracts in a downward motion, allowing the lungs more capacity to hold oxygen. The opposite is true when it comes to exhalation. The diaphragm pushes up and forces the carbon dioxide out of the lungs. The respiratory system has its own ways of protecting itself and making sure the oxygen going into the body has been cleaned and purified beforehand. There are hairs found within the nostrils that are meant to keep large particles from reaching the airway. Furthermore, there are very tiny hairs called cilia that can be found along the air passages, and their main job is to keep the area clear of foreign matter. Mucus is produced within the trachea and bronchial tubes in order to keep the air moist and clean. This slimy substance then traps and contains dust particles or other similar materials that can often be coughed up or swallowed in order to prevent it from reaching the lungs. All of these things are set in place to keep the respiratory system in homeostasis and functioning properly. Smoking cigarettes is possibly the worst way to disrupt homeostasis within the respiratory system. Smoking affects the growth of the lungs themselves and can lead to multiple respiratory diseases. Individuals who smoked in their teenage years before their lungs had a chance to fully develop have a very high risk of stunting their lung growth. Once a certain amount of damage has been done, the lungs will be unable to grow and develop to their full size. Smoking can lead to other things such as asthma, which is a disease of the lung that limits oxygen intake by restricting airflow within the system. This causes coughing, wheezing, and difficulty breathing. This nasty habit can also cause lung cancer. According to the Center for Disease Control in 2019, lung cancer was the #1 cancer killer in both men and women. Changes in the design and the way cigarettes are made have increased the chances for smokers to develop lung cancer. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD, is another disorder of the respiratory system that involves damage to the airways. People with this disease slowly die due to lack of adequate oxygen within their system. The CDC also reports that 8 out of every 10 cases of COPD are caused by smoking.
While the effects of smoking within the smoker themselves is very dangerous, the exposure of secondhand smoke to other individuals can be just as harmful to their health as well. In 2017, the Cleveland Clinic discussed the issue of secondhand smoke on one of their web pages. They put together a wealth of insightful information regarding this topic. This includes the fact that the smoke released from the end of a cigarette is actually far more dangerous and toxic than that which is inhaled by the smoker because there's no filter on that end. Out of the 4,000 chemicals that make up the smoke from cigarettes, 250 are harmful toxins, and it is known that another 50 are cancer-causing substances. Even as a non-smoker, if you are constantly around people who smoke, your body will still absorb the nicotine and other dangerous chemicals. Longer amounts of exposure time can cause varying issues within the respiratory system. For example, 5 minutes of direct exposure can cause the aorta to stiffen. 20 to 30 minutes can lead to an excess of blood clots around the cardiovascular system, and within 2 hours, the chance for arrhythmia or irregular heartbeats greatly increases. Thus, it is easy to see how cardiovascular system is negatively affected by secondhand smoke. There are certain groups of people who are at high risk of coming into frequent contact with secondhand smoke, and those who stand to sustain the most damage from it. The first group is service industry workers, particularly restaurant staff and bartenders. These people are often exposed for long periods of time due to their working conditions. Pregnant women are especially cautioned to avoid secondhand smoke due to the detrimental effects it can cause to their unborn child. Chances of placenta previa, stillbirth, and premature birth are all increased when smoking is introduced into the baby's environment. In addition, it reduces the amount of oxygen the child can receive during pregnancy, as well as quickens their heartbeat. Young children, infants, and pets are susceptible to a number of problematic conditions due to secondhand smoke exposure. These include incomplete lung growth, asthma, high blood pressure, and SIDS, which is sudden infant death syndrome. For these reasons, secondhand smoke should be taken more seriously due to all of its negative health issues. In conclusion, disruption of the respiratory system can severely endanger homeostasis in a living organism. One of the worst ways to do this is through the process of smoking. The thousands of harmful toxins with the smoke of a cigarette can wreak havoc on the body and affect not only the respiratory system, but the cardiovascular system as well. Throughout this project, we have compared the U.S. population of smokers to that of China's, as well as comparing the effects of the first-hand and second-hand smoking on individuals. Therefore, it is clear to see how detrimental smoking is in the lungs and heart, which in turn severely disrupts and damages homeostasis within a human being.